person has something. What would happen if I put my all into this passion since I was a kid to really bring people together through the power of kindness? And that 1 year off led to now 9 years and growing. Tremendous, it's been absolutely incredible. The way in which we spread our message is through inspirational media like film, through education, developing and implementing curriculum, through international events and leadership training programs, as well as through technology. And I can say that Crew has been a very, very, very big part of our growth, and I'm excited for it to continue to be a part of our growth as we build specifically our leadership training portal of this program. We have an event every year called Dance for Kindness. It's a global event that takes place in over 50 countries, 120 cities around the world, bringing together volunteer group leaders from age 10 to age 76, each organizing events within their own cities in a really amazing way, but I'm sure we'll get more into that.
Thank you, Arlie. It's great to have you. Thanks for making time to join us. And I would like to introduce now Elizabeth, who is a leader at Free Forest School.
Hi, I apologize in advance for background child chatter. I've got 3 running around. So I'm going to do my best. They've been instructed to try to stay quiet. Yeah, so I'm with Free Forest School, and our mission is to expand access to unstructured nature play for children, and to kind of like institutionalize that as a central part of childhood, or re-institutionalize that as a central part of childhood. And the way that we do that primarily so far has been by empowering caregivers in local communities to facilitate outdoor play groups. These are play groups where the parents bring their kids and stay with their kids, and we just have a volunteer there who kind of holds a loose structure of like, we meet, we share a snack, we have an intro talk, we wander down a trail, we don't have like a set destination in mind, it's very child-led, we find a place to stop, and the main part is the kids just kind of play freely in a nature space for about an hour, and then we close with a circle time. So that's kind of the model. We're right now about to dive into a process of kind of community visioning and restructuring, rethinking our model, but that's the model we've been working with so far, and that Crew has been allowing us to really expand. So previously we were kind of working just via Google Docs and emails and stuff to train local folks who want to start a new chapter in their city or town. And so we've been primarily using the Crew platform for training of directors, who are the people who launch and lead chapters, and then they kind of oversee a team of local facilitators who facilitate individual meetups, and those are kind of weekly at the same location. So that's another central component of our model, just to like have the kids be in the same place and get kind of used to it over time, and kind of get to witness the changes that happen, and in themselves and in the nature space.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. And hi to your little buddies in the back. It's great to see them. So my next question, it's just a question that I'm personally always curious about, is how do grassroots movements grow? It's yeah, something we all want to see for our communities, to expand our reach and our impact, and share our tools and resources with others. So I am wondering if you'd like to share how your organization grows. How do you recruit? How's your growth come to be? And maybe even, because both of you are actually some of the largest grassroots movements that Crew serves. So I'm always very impressed by how you just seem to attract people to your networks. Maybe Elizabeth, do we
start, or do you want?
Sure, I can start. Ready? Now it's quiet. So we kind of primarily have been spreading through word of mouth. You know, we started just with one chapter that was our founder kind of just wanted to start a play group for, you know, kids to connect with other families, and, you know, started a Facebook group, and overnight 1,000 people joined. So she kind of said, okay, I'll start a thing and start getting other people to help with it. And then she moved to Austin, and kind of the same thing happened. And then she moved to Minneapolis, and the same thing happened. So there were already kind of these 3 different places that she was kind of keeping in touch with and supporting local leaders. And then just as those people then kind of spread the word about it to other folks in their networks, they said, we want to do this too. And so she kind of got roped into, you know, starting to support more and more chapters, and eventually Irene Dueling joined in as she was one of the Austin initial folks in Austin, and she joined in to kind of help support and formalize some of that, and kind of really took over the one-on-one interactions with the individual chapter directors. Facebook has been kind of a big source for us of community building. Each chapter has its own Facebook group, so that's a way a lot of people find us and find out you can share this with their friends. So that's been another key piece. It's just like people saying, oh, I do this thing and it's awesome, and talking to their friends in other cities who are like, oh, I want one, and so then they can come to our website to start. And Google kind of search engine stuff is another big way that people have found us. Just people looking for that sort of thing.
I feel like Free Forest School is just like an idea that every parent who, I mean, as a parent, I had heard about it before we met with y'all. So you guys are definitely a well-known movement in the young kid parents community.
Elizabeth, I gotta say, happiest baby ever. I'm like, loving it.
Pulse.
So just a bit about how sort of we got started with Life Us Inside. The truth is, with any grassroots movement, the key to getting it out there is just to start, and not to be so nitpicky about things being perfect. And that's coming from a very big perfectionist. And I have to tell you, sometimes when you let go of being so super perfect, and you're just, and you forget about the how, and you focus on the why you're doing something, that's really when the magic is able to come into play. And it's very important for us to remember that. Just to give you an example, when I started this organization, so like I told you, I was a middle school teacher, okay? I happen to have had a background in film production. And during my summer off from teaching, right before I started the entity, I decided to shoot a film. I wanted to be able to show people this contagious power that kindness has to impact change. And I used a means that I knew. I knew how to communicate via film, but it had been so many years, like 7 years since I'd done film. I was super nervous. And I created this thing. And the truth is, nobody saw the film for 1 year because I went straight into teaching, and it was the following year that I took off. Long story short, I put the film up online, and I didn't have a website. I had nothing, okay? I was a middle school teacher, went from college to, that was it. And within months, the video went crazy viral. I mean, it's reached well over 100 million people globally. And the film is a big part of the way that people find us. Now, I'm aware that not every time, even though in the beginning when that happened, I'm like, wow, this is what happens when you put a video on YouTube. I had no idea what was going on. But the concept is just to start, because the way that I built my community, I didn't have a website. I didn't have a program yet, literally just started it. And all I had was a YouTube channel. So I used what I had. Everybody has something. And what do I mean that I used what I had? Well, I had people watching the YouTube video and leaving comments. And so all I did for maybe 20 out of the 24 hours every day was answer comments, literally that were that many. There were thousands that were coming in a day. That was all I was doing, responding to comments. And I didn't know it as I was doing it because it was just natural to me. I like connecting with people, that I was actually building a network. Who knew I was building a network? I had no clue. And relationships started to be built. And then someone's like, well, why don't you start a Facebook page? I'm like, okay. And then I started creating content for that. The name of the video is called Kindness Boomerang, for those of you that want to check it out. It's one people messaged. And so from there, things grew. And now I had this Facebook page that I was creating content for. And how did the biggest program come about? It came about because now all those people that were already connecting with me, we were friends. I had a dream. I know it sounds crazy, but I did. I had a dream. And it was a dream about in front of the UN, okay, in the US, and there were thousands of people from all different countries, and everybody was holding their country flag, and on the back of their country flag, it had the Life Us Inside motto that said, by living kindly, change is possible. And people were singing and dancing, and I wake up from this dream, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Because dance is such a great way. When people are dancing, they're not upset. They're not wanting to hurt somebody. They're feeling awesome, right? They're releasing endorphins. They're loving everything. So I said, how great would it be to be able to bring countries from around the world to dance together through something called Dance for Kindness. Now, I knew nothing about running a flash mob, knew nothing about dance. I'm not a dancer, I'm a basketball player, okay? So I knew zero. But what I did know is the skills I had from being a teacher. And what do you know from being a teacher? You know process. How to learn something and then be able to give it over to somebody else that doesn't have a clue about how to do it and still be able to teach it. And so that's exactly what I did. I did a local event just in New York, a flash mob. And as I did it, I learned how to do a flash mob. All these small things. And I put down a handbook. My handbook initially was 5 pages on a Google Doc, okay? Now it's like broken into like 75 pages, okay? And I made a video and I put it up on Facebook. And I said, hey guys, here's what I want to do. I want to do a global event for World Kindness Day and get group leaders from around the world that are going to run this event. And on the same day, we're going to take the same song and the same dance, and we're all going to do it together. Who's in? And 30 people reached out from 15 countries. And I started it with just this, handbook that I wrote, and I met with each one of them. And again, little did I know what I was doing was building community by having these one-on-one meetings, until it grew to then, 25 countries, 30 countries, 50 countries. And it came to the point where my capacity wasn't reaching the amount of people that were interested. There were 500 group leaders interested in joining us, but I'm one person and I commit to meeting with every group leader individually. Like, how am I going to do this? And all of the process, back and forth of the email, send them this email, then the next email, crazy. And then I was very lucky to find Crew. And what they helped me to do essentially was to streamline all of these processes so that I could focus more on actually building the community even further, where they can come on and they can get this, the easy steps and gain points and gain badges and so on and so forth. I'm sure we're going to get more into that. But how do you start? You start by not being afraid and by recognizing that nothing is ever perfect. I didn't have a website the first year I ran Dance for Kindness, and we had 3,500 people join us from around the world. But the minute that you empower people and you bring them as part of your team, and they feel that sense of authenticity, that you feel for them the same that you feel for yourself, you create something special. And that's something that people want to get behind. And from there, it grows and it grows and it grows. But it's just about starting and knowing it's not going to be perfect. If I waited for it to be perfect, I may still not have started Life Essence Inside. So,
yeah. Orly, I'm so pumped. I love listening to you speak. Thanks for sharing your story. And I have to say that the program managers that I've found are amongst the easiest to work with and like faster to launch a community are oftentimes teachers. I think there's just something about the training that education school gives folks that it's very, very similar to what it takes to orient someone into starting a chapter, starting a group, a team, and leading a local community. So it's no surprise that you're a teacher. So I think since you were kind of already going in that direction, you were starting to talk about the process that you've built from the beginning to train and orient these local leaders who then would lead small groups, or actually smaller, huge groups to engage in this dance events all around the world. I'd love to, my next question for both of you is, how do you use Crew platform to run your communities? And I think something both of your organizations have in common is, so far at least, you've used Crew to train your local leaders. So Orly, is it okay if we continue with you and maybe
part of expanding to be able to grow, you need to realize, and we all know this, right? No one person can do everything. The real goal of a leader, the person at the top, is not to actually do everything, is to empower others to be able to do. And that's why training is a very, very important part of it. The way that this initially was, I had set it up in a way that, because at the end of the day, I was getting onto a phone call with each and every group leader, I needed to ensure myself that the rate of drop off was so small that I wasn't wasting time on somebody that may drop off to begin with. So it started, just so you can understand, it started with people, fill out a form online and they have to answer certain questions. It's got to be a little bit hard for them, but not too hard. They answer certain questions and boom, they get a handbook, and then they read the handbook, and then they watch a tutorial video, and then they were emailing me back, and I had to keep track of what step they were up to, and then only once they got to those steps did I then meet with them. Now, what were we able to do through the crew? Because the way that the program works is that we open it up to group leaders, which is anybody that is interested in running an event in their specific location. And they have a few months to go through the training, and then after the training, we open up the event that people can register for the locations around the world, for these dance locations. And, the group leaders in charge of various tasks, that they need to be able to put in place. So what did we do? The first step is that when a group leader registered, and again, there's that registration process, they automatically received an email from us. And in that email that they received, even there, I created a short form tutorial video where I got them excited. And I actually shared my screen to show them how to use the platform, because there's only two reasons why people don't do things in this world. And I learned this from a mentor of mine. Number one is fear. Number two is a lack of perceived value. Now, if you can lower the fear of a person to do something and you can increase their perceived value, you have them. What does it mean that a person is fearful? They don't know what it entails. They're like worried. The more you can lower the fear of those that you're asking to come on board and show them the value that it's going to give them, the more likely they're going to sign on. And so the purpose of that video was to be able to help lower their fear, let them know that I'm going to be there to guide them through the process. I'm very detail oriented in those things. And then they'd come on. So before they even got to the platform, they understood what it was going to look like and what their responsibilities were. Setting and being very transparent and explaining expectations is important, but we also incorporate incentives. So I'll explain to you what I mean by that. So we created these tracks, right? I think number 2 is missing. It must not have been, I must have unpublished it.
It's probably
whatever. That's fine. But anyways, the way that it worked, we created in an easy visual way that even if it wasn't, it says step 1, I wanted them to see it. Again, easy. People need things to be easy for them to actually follow through. And I learned that if you break things down and make things easy, there's no reason for them not to do it, especially if you incentivize them. So they come into step number 1. And as you could see, they have a welcome video, okay? Just again, to make it more personal, to build that connection. And that's part of building that authenticity with the user and making them feel like they are part of your team, because they are. They're not your fan, they're your friend. Then they go through, introducing themselves, if there's any technical things that they need to do. But what we did is at the end of each of these, you'll see that there's a prompt over here, right? So there's something that they're asked to do. They watch a video, and then we give them a prompt, like it says here, what's the name of the organization that created Dance for Kindness? This one is a very, very simple one. Again, and as they answer the prompt, they receive points. You can see here for this one, they're receiving 10 points. Again, for some of the prompts that you're giving, they're very, very simple questions, and it's just to give them points. And for some, it gets to be a little bit more difficult. Like here, share a little bit more about yourself or a fun fact. And it's a great way for these group leaders to connect, to share who they are, to be able to see their faces, to see their families' faces, to actually, make it more personal. And the great thing is we incorporated even a point system whereby when they comment, and Crew allows you to do this, where they comment or like or engage with other people's posts, they would then receive points as well. So you can comment on people's posts, oh, that's such a great picture, I love that. And then they can, do a thumbs up or whatever it may be. Once they go through these steps here, okay, and then it unlocks the next section. So each of our sections, for example, in our dashboard, all had prerequisites. Again, you want to make it as easy as possible for your users not to get lost. And people can easily get lost. What you think is very, very, very straightforward, others will not understand that it's straightforward. So the more you can be mindful, the better. And so, we're now on step 3, right? Always in each of the steps, for most of the steps, I have a video to begin each step where I shortly explain to them what to expect. And what is a way that I did this, especially within the within a lot of the videos you guys will see in one of the upcoming things. So here they had to customize their fundraising page. This whole thing was about fundraising. So I taught them, I showed them, again, screen shared, how to create your fundraising page, your fundraising toolkit, fundraising activities. I give them points based on that. Well, that's going to be in another section, but here they're just learning. This is the training portion. This is not the actual doing. This is the training, and for them to actually get certain tasks in place, like creating their fundraising page. Meaning nobody's an official group leader until they finish these 7 steps and I actually get onto a call with them. Okay, and we ask different questions here, like what tools have been the most helpful, and so on and so forth. If we go back to the dashboard for a moment, I'll just show you here, and a trick that I've used. So for example, here on watch the tutorial video, step number 4. You know, for me, giving points and incentivizing our group leaders by giving them points and badges is really important. And I'm sure we'll take a look at how we can utilize that. But in each of these videos, okay, so again, I have like a tutorial guide. While they're watching the video, I have notes on what they're watching so that they can take notes. And you'll notice if you take a look, if you go to, let's say, go to section 4 for a moment on the tutorial video, it will ask them, each of them, here, see it says, what is the code word mentioned? I did this a lot in my videos because I also posted, once they became group leaders, I wanted all of our group leaders to be up to speed with each other. So I would post update videos, but I didn't just post a video because how do you know somebody really completed it? They can say they completed it, but how do you know? So in the middle or somewhere in my video, I would mention a code word, whatever that code word was. It was always different. That means that they have to listen to the whole video because they don't know where my code word is. And in order for them to get points, they need to be able to respond correctly so that I know that they actually done it. Now, within each step section, they can go through all the process, but in order to move on to the next bucket, it all had to be approved by the administrator, where you can, you know, on the platform, you have an easy way to go in and to just check what they did. If they don't answer a question right, you can then respond to them. Hey, I think you misunderstood what we were asking here, or whatever it may be. And again, it's to create accountability, because at the end of the day, your group leaders need to be held accountable. As you can see right here, these are the badges. Based on badge, when you click on the badges, it will tell you what you need to complete in order to get those badges. So when you click, it tells you, for example, you have to complete step 5, secure your location in order to get this specific badge, and so on and so forth. And these badges and the points eventually were exchangeable for prizes. So for example, on the platform, you have the ability to see who has the most points. And so group leaders that obtained the most points then received a certain prize, like they got a free kindness curriculum for a school of their choice in their location, and so on and so forth. The discussions is a really great tool as well. You'll notice on the left-hand side here, it says,
sorry to interrupt you, Orly, but I just for time's limitations, let me
sorry.
Just say, no, you're doing great. Thanks so much for taking us through your track structure. I just want to point out one quick thing here on your platform, which is that I really like the way you do this, where you have a dashboard set for your leaders in training, and then when they earn badges along the way, and when they finish their 7th one, they become an official team leader, and their dashboard changes to the next set of requirements as you take them, as they go through their event, and then have some deliverables after the event. So I really like how you created this automatic way for students.
That's a very useful thing. And then you can give them various tests that they can do. So if you're wanting them to do something, you can give them these various tests where they can thereby even obtain more points, and that helps to incentivize. So
yeah. Thanks Orly. I'd like to ask the same question of Elizabeth. Elizabeth, if you can just take us through how you use Crew to train your leaders who mobilize their communities locally.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities from, hey kids, hush. There's a lot of similarities from what Orly described, luckily, so I don't have to go in depth on that stuff because she's covered that. So yeah, we've done a similar thing of having kind of an order, so you can see our tracks are numbered so people know what order, and you have to complete kind of each one before you can get to the next one. And, you know, we start with kind of orienting folks to the big picture in track 1 of like, what is Free Forest School? How do the chapters work? What's kind of the core of what we do? And then what comes next kind of provides an overview of what to expect for the rest of the training. And we kind of break it down in a couple different ways, visually and in text, so that people know what to expect. So that's where they start. And then for number 2, we do just the basics of the organization. Then we get into number 3, how they're running their chapter and what that looks like. Then get out and scout. So that's about finding their first location for their first meetup. So we give them some information about what to look for in a site and why do we do things this way, where we meet at the same place over and over. How to facilitate. So our chapter directors are typically the first facilitators of events. So we train them in that. And then so far, we've only been training our directors, and then they have been in charge of training their facilitators. So they would kind of take this training that they got on base camp and they would provide it in a different way, usually like in person. You know, I'm a director, and so what I do is I host kind of sessions where interested facilitators come and I lead them through a regular session and give some commentary along the way, so they've seen it, which is helpful. But we also the plan has been to shift to also having our facilitators go through the Crew platform for their training, so that everyone kind of has some basic like kind of same ideas of what it is, versus relying on directors to communicate all of that. It will take some of the burden off of directors by having it come centrally, and just helps us to ensure that there's kind of like the same experience being had, the experience that we want folks to have when they work with Free Forest School is had by everybody. So and also just gives us a chance to like communicate more directly with all our volunteers, as opposed to relying on our directors to communicate. That's been one thing we've been excited about with Crew. And okay, kiddos, hey, right? Hush.
It's okay.
So yeah, one thing we're really excited about Crew. Eventually, our plan has been to get all of our participants. Rigel. Rigel, you need to hush now, okay? Hush now. Get all of our participants onto the platform and do our event scheduling. We have been doing all of that via Facebook, but we're really excited about the Crew platform to be able to be a place where we can do that, so we are less reliant on Facebook and have more direct communication with our participants, versus having 150 different Facebook groups that we have to go into and hope that the algorithm presents our content if we want to with everybody. So that's a plan that we've been working on shifting to. We'll see kind of what happens with this revisioning. So yeah, that's kind of that track 5, and yeah, and then so once they've been kind of oriented to those information, Capella, you need to give it to her right now. Capella, okay. Give it. Thank you. Nope. Okay. So yeah, then we get into kind of the logistics of actually the things that they need to do in order to actually launch their chapter. So once they've kind of understood and received some training, then we have actual logistical things that they need to do. So we have them submit some content that we're going to use for their chapter's page on our website. We orient them to how we use Facebook and have them kind of request their group to be created, and then we create it. So there's some back and forth here, and that's where we've used what Orly talked about, that you can choose which things require approval from admins to say, okay, yes, you've completed this, versus which things you can just like have them say that they've completed. So that's been helpful to us. We've really limited it down because we have very limited kind of staff working on this. So to say, what are the things we really need eyes on to make sure, okay, they get it, or this is an important thing, versus what things we can just we want them to have seen, and we're just going to trust that they've seen it as they go through. So we kind of decided about that. Yeah, and then once they've kind of worked through this process of these 10 tracks, then they're pretty much, then by the end of it, they've kind of launched and they've been given permissions, kind of access to our national forums, and given their admin status on their Facebook group, and their content's been adding to our webpage. So all those things are happen through this. the goal has been to like also then have ongoing content that directors can access after they've launched that can support them. And we haven't fully kind of developed that. So, but we would use the same kind of system that Orly has of kind of, you know, they earn badges as they go. And once they've earned all the badges, then they get their new role and they'll have a new dashboard with the new content.
Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth. And I just want to say the obvious, right? Like, I have 2 kids, and right now they're at a neighbor's house, thank goodness, but it just always happens. And when you most need them to stay away from the computer, they go crazy, or they somehow know. And the veil is down now. I think this is now all of our realities. So thanks for sharing, Elizabeth. And I think my next question that I just like to, and it's actually the last question, and then we'll go to the community for questions and answers, is in a couple of minutes, what would you say your top 2 or 3 lessons are when you're working to mobilize communities online who are doing real work offline, right? They're working on projects, they're doing dance-a-thons, they're leading groups of parents, etc. What have you learned over the years that you'd like to share with our community today? Maybe, Orly, we can start with you.
So I think, okay, first of all, it's really important to create a community. That meaning they themselves feel very connected. So one of the things that, that I've done, and again, I've also utilized, similar to what Elizabeth was saying, I've also utilized Facebook in this way. And this past year, I was trying to move people over onto the discussion on the platform, which is sometimes a little bit more difficult for them. But every time I meet with a group leader, right, and I have that initial conversation, I take a screenshot and I upload it onto our Life Fest Inside channels, and I introduce them with a little bit about who they are. And all the other group leaders, both on the private group leaders and within the public, everybody, welcomes them aboard. When people feel the sense of connection, and they're supporting each other, to me, that's a huge way in order to create community. These people live in different countries, speak different languages. I have people that really don't speak English so well, okay? I mean, they're from all over. Yet, they connect with each other and they love each other. We had actually a marriage that came from group leaders that we brought together, which is really, really exciting for me. So it's just about creating community, whether it's posing a question, whether you have like a question of the week, and when you incentivize and you highlight, let's say, a member of the week or member of the month for something that they're doing, that really helps tremendously. Having people share about where they're coming from, because if they're a global community or people from wherever, sharing those experiences, that's what builds a relationship, and we've had to now think of, I've had a meeting with group leaders from around the world, how we can incorporate our event, because we can't do Dance for Kindness this year physically because of Corona. So how do we bring meaning, infuse meaning into this event, into the event, even though we can't physically be together? And so we've come up with an amazing way, which I haven't even shared with you yet, Talis, but of how we can utilize the platform, Crew platform, to create kindness challenges that as you complete the challenges, you unlock the next challenge, and so on and so forth. So just being creative of how you can more connect digitally and bring them together and let people get to know each other. So and that's my thoughts, at least.
Thanks, Orly. How about you, Elizabeth? What are your top 2 or 3 best practices for engaging communities online?
Yeah. I mean, for us, something that's been really beneficial kind of has been the photos, like encouraging people to share photos of their participation in the events, because that for us has been like a way to get people who are interested and who join the Facebook group, but who like Orly was talking about, the fear, right? Like not the fear of the unknown and not knowing what to expect. And by being able to see photos of other people doing it, has helped. And we also encourage people to share kind of like after each event, we encourage, what we do is we kind of ask for one person to volunteer to be the photographer so that we don't have everyone with their phones out, right? We like to kind of keep phones away, but we have one person kind of as the designated photographer, and that's just a volunteer at the, we just ask for a volunteer at the beginning of the event, and then we ask them to just post that to the Facebook group that's for each chapter, so that they can see what happened. And we ask them to give like a little, just like say something that happened, a little kind of couple sentence synopsis. And those have been really helpful, I think, for people just being like, oh wow, like those kids, look at those kids covered in mud, and like, oh, this, I see this story that a parent is sharing about how their kid was really nervous about climbing a tree, but then they watched the big kids do it, and then they did it and they felt so proud, so or a big thing is too encouraging people to not just post the positive but also post the negative, because that can be a big, like, oh, my kid won't be all happy all the time, they're going to throw a tantrum at the trailhead and refuse to go another step. So people say that too, and say like, and that's fine. So that's been another big thing, is like being realistic, and encouraging people that like even disasters are expected and accepted. And so those are some.
I was just going to jump in. I noticed we had a bunch of people working on the call today that are working on a lot of things around health initiatives and stuff. And I was wondering if there were specific, almost challenges that you've been facing with starting new programs or facilitating services, especially now in the world of COVID, where everybody is jumping to online gatherings. I'd love to invite everybody to maybe, ask some questions, or, or even talk about some pain points that you're facing right now. And don't be shy.
Marty.
Hi, this is Tricia with Buckner. I think I got on late, so I wasn't able to introduce myself. So this is Tricia with Buckner. I run our youth program. Hello, ladies. Had hair day, so y'all see my picture. Hi. One of my questions, working with Buckner, we have a community coordinator. She is doing an excellent job with me, getting the community involved in my after-school virtual program. So one of the goals is, I think it's kind of challenging, is how do I really tap into that community to really make an impact when it comes to the students' education. And I'm looking for certified teachers to be able to hop on and kind of meet some of those parents' needs, but I don't want to program without the impact, if that makes sense. I really want to be able to meet each parent and child's need. And I just want to know, where do I start and how? Because we did a summer program, but it was challenging. Everybody said it was excellent, but it was new. So I'm still trying to see how can I stand out for the virtual after school program? What could I do different?
Wow, that's a great question. And you need it to be virtual right at this point, I suppose.
Yes, we are doing virtual. Yes, ma'am.
How are you working on recruiting people?
We're doing email blasts, we're doing phone calls, we're doing flyers. That's what we're doing at this present time. We're doing flyers, email blasts, Remind app. Thank you, Jay. Remind app. Any type of
question. Are you guys doing, how visible are you guys doing videos where you're really speaking out to people? Like actually recording yourself speaking about the program and why people should join it? Because there are loads of people that get emails, right? Think about how many emails come through and inboxes get completely full. People generally, I would say, again, this is just my experience, people don't connect with organizations, they connect with people. So
yes. Wow.
By being able to show yourself, and tell the story, but and it doesn't have to be professionally filmed or whatever, like just by actually being able to whatever, create a video, whether it's on however basis you want it to be, it really does, it gets people to know who you are, who the community is, and gets them to want to ask questions. That to me is a really good way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Wow. I like that. That's excellent. Thank you.
I think we
course.
struggle with the red tape aspect because we are an established
Oh.
organization, and we can't even post a flyer on our Facebook. It has to go through like 2 different channels, 3 different channels, and then they post it. So I've been a little more creative with using TikTok. I work with the teen program. I saw my after school teen program. All the teens are on TikTok. So we've done TikToks. That's kind of how I've gotten around that. But even then I was told, don't let it say Buckner on it. So I'm not supposed to. So I think we struggle with the red tape issue, Miss Tricia. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with you, Jay. I forgot we do go through several channels, but one of the things I will recommend after this call is to reach out to Maria, Lisa, and see could they do a video for us. You know,
that would probably
we ought to
be
be able to get in some type of way, because I like the video idea. I like how she said the people need to see the face of the community. So I think that's excellent. So I honestly believe that Buckner probably will go for that, like with Miss Shanice. I will reach out. I think it's an excellent idea because I believe that's what we need at this present time.
Yeah, you could do something cool where each of the staff members share like why they love Buckner. You know, like why are you passionate about it? What is your personal story about it? And each week could be another person sharing their personal passion behind why they love it, why they chose to work there, not somewhere else. That speaks to people, you know?
Yeah.
I would also jump in and just say, I think one of the things that was game changing for our organization and was having that home place that they can connect with us as a, like where people can feel like they can log into our world, right? As opposed to just everything being facilitated across a website. That's exciting. That's great. We have our messaging, we've got our pieces. But then I think once they're invited into our program and we log them in, like that's why for us having a platform where they could do that made a huge difference in just sort of the conversation and in what people do, that they feel like they can reach us and that they're connected with us and much more engaged that way. So that was something from us that really made a big difference.
Yeah. I'd say too, Marty, I don't know if this is part of the issue, you, Tricia and Jade, but if numbers are part of the issue, we also work with several organizations who mobilize college students and who serve as mentors to younger high school students or sometimes even younger. And then having some kind of onboarding process like Marty and, you know, you saw Orly and Elizabeth, like what an onboarding process could look like. Some are longer, some are shorter, but just, tapping into the extended community that is in your area could also be a way to expand the number of volunteers who are, you know, supporting your young folks and families from your program.
One other thought I had too is just about being a hub where people can connect to a broader community of other people in the same situation could also be like appealing to folks, you know, to like, because if you can provide value, but all the people participating can provide value to each other by saying, here's what about this. So if you can create or facilitate those sorts of connections, that can also.
Okay,
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks. Great question, you, Tricia and Jade. Does anyone else have a question or a comment, a thought they'd like to share? It's all good. Great. I mean, I think, sorry, go ahead, Marty. I saw you.
No, it's great. This has been super helpful. One of the things that I've always really benefited from in terms of being part of like this whole network of crew is that I've learned so much from the other organizations. And we've been running these webinars from different angles for the last couple of weeks. And it's interesting to see how much that's actually transforming our program. So thanks both Orly and Elizabeth. I've learned a lot today. It was fantastic.
Yes, ditto, Marty. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth and Orly, for sharing, I'm so inspired personally by you individually, by your movements that you've mobilized and continue engaging. Thanks for taking the time. And for everybody else who joined, it's a pleasure to meet you. Please feel free to reach out if if you think there's a way that we could collaborate or help support your communities, your programs. You know, it doesn't just have to be about the need for a platform. I love just learning from organizations doing wonderful work, and then connecting. What are your needs? What especially in this new uncertain times we're facing, if there's a way we can serve you, or sometimes there's other recommendations of or other programs or tools that I could connect you with, and I'd be happy to do that. So I'll put my email here. I'll share my screen if you want to. That info goes to me, but you can also contact me at tallies@crew2030.org. I'm putting it here. And yes, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks again for joining. Marty, thank you for getting this webinar series started and finished with us. It's been wonderful. Sam, you're still the highest participant winner of the series. And yeah, thank you for all the work you all do with your communities. I think, you know, in this crazy times, as the world changes, institutions change, investing in communities, in my mind, is the one sure investment. It's grounding, and we all need it in our lives. So thank you for your work. And that is it. We are finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.